Hello, Americans and people of the world. This is about the collusion slash S of Robert DeNiro. That because of how he's asserting he was child abused, to blame other things, others ourselves, for things that James Madison and America's plural founders directed him and everyone to blame on a breaching method, a human factory nature breaching method. He is being used hyper additionally by others slash S in that too, being used by other slash S at the same time. In other words, by the everyone's voicings for humanity. That they have inherent to them, active to them, and increasingly progressive to them, their factory nature, quality aspects in nature, incapabilities of defending that without self-valuing, having been, for example, where James Madison and America's founders, plural, they directed us not to entertain anyone referred to as our founder, plural, besides James Madison. And while they're pretending that's debatable, other is measured and maintained self-value, sensing for everyone, sensing for the breaching method, self-valued collusion slash S at campuses A through Z. No, sickly distinctly at campuses A through Z, but also sickly non-distinctly, but clearer than day at campuses of New York City. And the breaching method showed the names of the people of the sciences, how they need to keep other things, others, ourselves, blamed for nature's demonstration slash S about how it showed them to be syntax nature, A, Boolean logic, exceptions appreciation, styles of logic leaving out black people's whites of eyes, pretending everyone believes things that we don't. Who's everyone? I'm not saying everyone, like the way Robert De Niro, everyone. No, everybody. No, everybody. As only people allowed her, it would have surfaced how James Madison demonstrated to us, then to catch them. Not to catch them, to convict them exactly the way the breaching method wants, to catch them to show they are being used remotely. The names of the people, the sciences, the branches of government, link three branches of government, the jobs, the titles, the difference slash S. You don't understand why and how they're, in other words, you guys are pretending not to discern. From off the campus is discernible. Hyper additional collusion slash S. Forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading other things to be blamed. Right where our founders and where nature itself shows us to blame. There was a human factory nature breaching method entrenched in America since before America's founders were born. What everyone misses and has replaced through themselves. They're forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to pretend that they don't realize that, and may not realizing that the breaching method was entrenched before America's founders were born. They had to hide who they were, countering the laws against everyone. They wanted nothing to do with slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. They had to leave it entrenched, not because someone should be able to vote on something like that, because they didn't have free speech and everyone had to pretend other to an extent slash S with the same plan at the same time. Otherwise, they were sensed by the breaching method, but also for the phenomenon of James Madison and the plural founders behind him and his plan that forced everyone to help at the same time, where it was against the laws of the sense and sensibilities of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the branches of government, already having been collusion with the differences of their guilt together. Specifically, to have them in the future incapable more and more of affording the past details appreciated properly with our short words, let alone the protraction. Properly, what our founders communicated about how databases are used, the differences of guilt at the places and associated with them, or at other locations tied to the uses of the differences, cover-ups. In other words, everyone was directed not to pretend any modern country. And our founders direct us not to pretend our country was unity where it was is not. But they also directed us not to blame other things, others ourselves, for the breaching method caused things, for example. We're supposed to, if there's mistakes made, in cases, especially regarding Black people's right to lives, it left out shows legal natures regarding American history, regarding the discernment of evaluation of intelligence, how to measure such, how to sense such. These sense and sensibilities have been maintained three ways: criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence, to keep other things, others, ourselves, things like criminal foreign influence, blamed on the hyper-criminal foreign influences, collusion / S, and counters to it, defended wrongly as collusion, to blaming other things ourselves, not even discerned. The breaching method that's keeping everyone blaming each other. The breaching method that knew and knows that only locations, areas, and states, everywhere the species body is, they could operate the phenomenon of the names of countries. It's the thing behind any logistical consideration of these countries with weapons pointed at each other, while they are with suburbs that were designed for a torture, extortion, faction, nature, slavery method that we still don't have free speech to speak against. And through the people that are dishonest with our space statement, then they want to go fishing with the court's guilt or that. They can't, in other words, you guys are supposed to follow mandated law, change fake, and go fishing with the things people said. When they mention child abuse acts, predicate acts too, interbranch, there's only three branches of government. They're still doing things like switching names. When they have time collusions with child abusers, leaders, and kids around their own kids. One's involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members, their lawyer, next to his law offices, other natures or conjunctions to him, intercities, intra-cities, with people inter and intra-campuses, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders instances, and predicate acts relative. And increasingly times collusion / S with names tied to people next to a campus I went to for 1 year when I was in kindergarten in Wethersfield, with people who are increasingly stacking fake things and collusion / S with anything true. They're all used for lies too, the truths in the databases. There's a little magic trick / S manifest at countries A through Z. With this breaching method employed the natures of the people, the sciences, including the actors. These are people with the network. CBS fake my conversations with me. These are intelligence at next to Fox Connecticut News, involved with a Thaddeus Grabowski, involved with some Mendez police, one's named to Maine, with people all along Two Rod Highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane, conjunctions to it and to that, like Route 3 in the state judicial branch offices. In the Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford, with people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders through time, specifically relative where used remotely are names on all sides of criminal civil cases, the interbranch, the foreign, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, even when they're not involved with the cases, and news at the same time with the same sequence shifts, wire crime methods, predicate acts methods, self-value, collusion / S, and S styles. Readings of statutes and precedents regarding what's actually, this is also digitally recorded. There's a Judge Killian who has roles with whiting forensics, with sexual and medical offenders of kids. And the only reason it's gotten away with, they've been changed with the FBI director Robert Luskin's collusions with them too, changing and faking what's actually digitally recorded, and with people further with the state judicial branch offices involved with body dumping spots and things confirmed to me on Facebook that show where and how it's recorded that all ages and natures of investigators and the differences of the guilt of them or the family members as the ages of them, of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and or the people tied to databases at all ages and natures of campuses, including medical campuses and fire campuses, including fire campuses running into regular campuses, collusions, people running into high line progressions tied to that. There is a predicate action with facts method /S that replacing black people's rights of eyes communications by nature, replacing why and how little kids distinctly from, but also non-distinctly from adults. We could discern how male and female is generated between species bodies. Two eyes are generated between species bodies by a further distinct identity of value progression. We're not supposed to be forced to have to call it God or what. But we're supposed to be honest if we're going to get involved with other people's conversations about World Trade Center attack predicate acts, let alone ones about child abusers and intercities, murders at the same time brought up, untimely deaths, collusions with prisons and state corrections offices, judicial branch offices with crime scenes and body dumping spots years apart, with timed use /S of them too, and of their campuses timed collusion /S. This breaching method made the names of the people of the sciences, therefore the branches, everything, originally and still incapable of defending themselves without self-evaluating how the breaching method taught them to treat the principles of American history. First of all, replacing what our founders, plural, and why our founders, plural, directed us not to allow, entertained, replaced, how and why there were plural ones that we don't know, and they had to force everyone. And that's about why and how slavery was entrenched. And that's science. Instead, criminal insidious natures of positive science have pretended that, well, look, this is what was written, that's was accepted. Now, see, these are also people that were collusion /S and are only capable of valuing to have people now valuing to have because it never stopped. Collusion beings, collusion /S with location /S, use /S by the breaching method that nobody wanted collusion /S with. Northern colonies or southern colonies, but they were only permitted to be collusions with slavery against all women, against Native Americans, and if they weren't pretending other to an extent /S, they were sentenced because it was also collusion /S too, because of each difference and each person at the same time. Inter and intracultural. People are hurt by people as their culture or not. And the difference of that at the same time is exploited by this breaching method. And it knew that nature would demonstrate that to us. And so it shows that there are identities of differences. And the fact that people have differences, the people speaking about that are not supposed to go fishing with that. They're not supposed to go use the real motives or made up, especially they're using the real motives to hide the complete one. The breaching method is a part of your motives. Where and how you have black people's rights of eyes and that left out, while simultaneously the breaching method has been left out from communications about how the breaching method that our founders declassified, about how the breaching method had such a front on all human differences, multi-front, to maintain collusion /S that no one wanted collusion /S with, specifically for them to point that out too. Where and how this breaching method knew those collusions would be traced, right? Where and how it knew that it would be demonstrated. Right, and how, where, and how it knew that all differences, like lawyer, American history expert. It can be shown that they already had self-added collusion slash S with the obligations of the short words by those expertise being and having been replaced, valuing that having been because of how it is. And how it is because of how it was. And because how both of those is being used to show them that they can't afford to have this discerned in the future too. Unless they pretend this about industry and motives. Unless they pretend this about the shocked and awe, for example, using an expression, I believe, of Donald Rumsfeld. I believe I heard it on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC. Here in the vaccine. It's just things, but no. Thank you.